What's going on, guys? MacDowan here with another farm strategy summary and review. Today I'm going to be talking about Harbinger, Essence, and Delirium in Jungle Valley or City Square. It is worth noting that this strategy will work just fine if you throw it on top of whatever map it is that you prefer, your burial chambers, your cemetery, or even the Crimson Prison. I just happen to have been a little bit burned out on the latter mentioned maps there, and so I have been favoring Jungle Valley and City Square. It is worth noting as well that City Square will most heavily utilize the only compass that we're using in the strategy, which is the Harbinger compass. And then real quickly, just to go over the rest of the setup, we are running red altars. We're going to run Harbinger scarabs. I have some gilded in here, but you could just as easily use polished or even rusted if your budget is prohibitive. And then I throw a breach scarab in there. Again, the quality of the scarab doesn't really matter that much. We just want, one breach on there to grab up some headhunter buffs, and in the event that we get a lot of juice from the league mechanic, the breach monsters will definitely drop some loot. I've had some divines drop and a bunch of other goodies, etc. And then we're just going to fill out the rest with some sacrifice fragments. And now let's jump over and take a look at the Atlas. At the risk of beginning to sound a little bit like a broken record, I will again make the caveat that I am not claiming this to be the most optimized, the best, the most efficient, any of that as far as Atlas passive trees go. This is just the way that I have things set up that has worked well for me, and I'm hoping that it will either be enjoyable or work well for you. And as far as the league mechanics, why have I chosen Essence and Harbinger? And the simple answer to that is that I wanted to, this league, try and focus as much as I can on strategies that are not really heavily invested in the league mechanic itself or directly invested in Magic Find. I may get into some of that stuff a little bit later, but I want to try and produce some strategies and some farming situations that are enjoyable for people who do not want to go into the Giga Abyss farm and all of that stuff, or who have some trouble with the league mechanic, that type of thing. So for this setup, you definitely do want to, do the league mechanic, but you are not heavily reliant on being able to get a huge amount of wisps in order to scale your essence drops or harbinger drops. To my knowledge, both of those mechanics are not affected at all by the league mechanic, and I don't believe essence or harbinger is really affected by quant or rarity. And so that is why I have chosen those. And as far as delirium goes, the delirium orbs are quite lucrative this league, and the simulacrums are also fairly lucrative in comparison. I feel like most of the time they're like 2 to a divine by this point in the league, and I have still been reliably selling them for 0.8, 0.9, sometimes as much as 1 div a piece. And so I have found that the trade-off there is very good. It does make the maps a little bit harder, but we're getting a lot more monsters in the map. We're getting those delirium orb drops, and we are farming up simulacrums that are selling fairly well. So as far as the nodes that we're choosing, we're going to come right up here, grab the essence nodes here. You don't need these 2 here. You can leave those. We're going to come up through the middle, over to here, and grab delirium chance. And then we're going to block everything on this side, including breach, it is worth noting. I don't really care about random spawns of breaches in the maps. I just want the one from my scarab, and that's all I need. Then we're going to come over here and block everything except for delirium. And that should give us, in combination with this node, a pretty good chance of getting a mirror of delirium on just about every map that we do. You'll get occasionally 1 or 2 maps that it does not spawn, but that is just fine. Then we're going to come over here and grab our Harbinger nodes, some map nodes right here. And we're going to swing up this way, fill out the Harbinger nodes here, singular focus over here. Shoot up into the middle here. We're going to grab all the quant there, all the rarity here. Finish our Harbinger nodes, grab the essence nodes here. Swing up the top area here and grab this map node. And we're going to come on up here and grab some delirium here. This will increase our splinters, and this is particularly useful for amping up the reward tiles that we get. Then we're going to come over this way, and we're going to fill out all of our altar nodes. Then we're going to grab the final set of delirium stuff here. And then lastly, we're going to swing on down here and grab the last set of essence nodes. And that is basically the setup. As far as what I would do if I had a few more points, I would probably go ahead and either fill out the top hat or I would invest in more map duplication nodes so that I had an easier time sustaining my City Square, Jungle Valley, whatever it is that you're running. Other than that, though, this is more or less what I would do. And so if you are like me and you've got, there are a couple unique maps that I have not completed, as well as a few Maven invitations, so I could grab a few more points if I wanted to, but I haven't really found it necessary. This is working pretty well for me. So let's jump over and we will do some gameplay footage, and I will throw up the card. We'll talk about the scores, and then I'll send you on your way. All right, here is the card for the Harbinger Essence Jungle Valley City Square strategy. For fun, I'm giving this one an 8.5. I had a blast doing this one. In fact, I could have given this a 9 or even a 9.5 for fun, but there is the small problem of Essence monsters being scaled in terms of their difficulty from the League mechanic, but not so much in the reward department. And so you can get occasionally one of those situations where there's a particularly difficult Essence monster and then it gets juiced up by the League mechanic and gets really nasty. But that doesn't happen that often, and so I just dinged it, 0.5 or so in terms of the score there. Overall, though, the strategy was incredibly enjoyable. As far as repeatability, it gets a 9. This is very much a strategy you can just throw in a bunch of maps, blast for a couple hours, and it doesn't really get boring as you go, because the Harbingers, just for me, make the maps really interesting, and the ability to kind of throw this strategy onto any map that you want also makes it repeatable in that sense. If you get bored with Jungle Valley, throw in some City Square, or as I said at the beginning, you could throw in basically any map that you want, and this strategy will work for you. So for scalability, it gets its only lower score, so a 6 there, because there's really not a whole lot that you would do to amp this strategy up that wouldn't kind of transform it into a different strategy entirely. You could run the Delirium Mirror Compass, but those are pretty expensive, and as I said earlier, I was pretty much getting a mirror in every map. You might have 1 or 2 maps here and there that don't get one, but the way that I've got the tree set up, it's fairly reliable. And there's even a couple more Delirium Chance nodes towards the top of the tree. You could grab those to even increase your likelihood of not having the maps without them a little bit more. And you could, of course, go for a Winged Scarab and stuff like that, but I just don't think it's necessary for the purposes of this farm. And so scalability is not really there. Kind of once you get it set up and you start blasting, that's kind of the way that the input and output is going to look, and so there is that to consider. So for profit, 7.5. It's totally fine. This is not a giga profit strategy. I would say on average, if I get a good League mechanic, I'm almost always pulling, a Raw Divine or a Valdo's Puzzle Box or some kind of a decent drop off the ground. And then, of course, you've got the altars going, so there's the Awakened Sextants and the Greater and Grand Eldritch Embers. And then, of course, you're consistently pulling all kinds of Harbinger shards. You've got the Fracturing shards dropping that are, I think, up to 2 div a piece at this point. And so those have been extremely profitable. However, you're not really scaling up to the crazy abyss type stuff where you're getting tons and tons of huge explosions of scarabs and raw divines and things like that. So not a stellar profit strategy, but totally worthwhile. I would say comparable to the harvest strategy that I went over before, although I think the harvest strategy might be a little bit more profit in terms of your hour to hour. And then in terms of efficiency, this gets a 9, because all you have to do is buy a bunch of the fairly cheap Harbinger compasses and grab yourself some Harbinger scarabs, and you are good to go. There's really not anything else that you need to do. The breach scarab and the sack frags and so on and so forth, that stuff is just kind of additive. It's not absolutely mandatory to get the strategy working, and so that's about it. The total score here is an 8, so a very fun, effective, repeatable, enjoyable strategy, and I recommend that you give it a go. I've had a blast doing it. I'm actually just going to continue doing this for probably another couple days before I try and figure out what my next project is going to be. I'm not sure if I want to make another character or if I want to just continue to dump currency into my tornado shot setup and maybe even go a little bit further into Magic Find. I'm only running the 2 Venter's Gamble rings. I could throw quite a bit more Magic Find onto the build. but I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet. And so, like I said, this strategy was enjoyable enough that I'll probably keep doing it for a little while. And that is about all I've got for you guys today. If you found anything interesting or engaging in the video, please do hit the like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. I appreciate you.